Hey guys, so I'm here to finally share with you my birth story. It's been a long time coming. Parker will be 8 weeks this Tuesday. It is currently Friday. It's just amazingly crazy that she's been in our lives as long, even though it seems like she's been here my whole life. I don't know, it's just really strange. But I do want to share you the journey of her coming into this world and becoming part of our family. So coming up on Parker's due date was July 1st to June 31st. And coming up closer and closer, I kept going more insane, and then insane, not knowing when my water was going to burst, when I was going to be rushed to the hospital, how long it was going to take Garrett to get there. So you're going to get in a wreck trying to get home to me, and it was just nuts. So a week before her due date, me and Garrett decided to talk to my doctor about getting induced. So we had our induction set for July 1st. And it was at 7 a.m. So that morning on the 1st, we went to sleep at like midnight that night. We got up at 3, just wanted to make sure that everything was in order, and we had to be there by 7. So we just want to make sure everything in the house was in order. The dogs had plenty of food, the house was clean enough for us to come back, and everything was just situated that we were packed and had everything we needed. And so we ended up taking us 30 minutes to get everything ready, and we just sat here staring at each other. And we called in, because if you're induced or getting induced, you have to call in to make sure they have beds. Because if there's a lot of women that came in that night unexpectedly to have babies and they don't have any rooms, then you're just going to be pushed back and back. So thank goodness for us that didn't happen, and they allowed us to come in 30 minutes early. So we did end up getting at the hospital at 6:30 that morning, and we were in our room by 7. So at 7:30 they hooked me up to pitocin. They went ahead and inserted my IV, which my IV, they try to put it in my arm, in my left arm, since that's not my dominant hand, and they could not find a vein. And it's so weird. I always have great veins. I've never had trouble with people sticking with me with IVs or with getting shots or anything. So they ended up having to go in the back of my right hand. And so after they inserted the IV, my doctor finally came in and she checked me, and she said I was still 2 centimeters dilated and 90% effaced. And so after they measured me, my doctor went ahead and told them how much pitocin they wanted to start dripping me with. And they first started off low and slow, which was good. It took till 10 o'clock for me to get to 3 centimeters. And at that time I started to feel the contractions. And they weren't horrible, they were just kind of uncomfortable. I could talk through them, I mean, it wasn't a big deal. But I had heard so many stories of women who didn't get their epidural till they were like in so much pain, and they could, like, unbearable pain. And since they waited, and that they were no longer on the list for probably 2 hours till the anesthesiologist could get to them, and by the time they got there, they have to flush you completely through 1 bag of IV, and then they can give you the epidural, and that takes a little bit of time, and then it takes a little while for it to kick in, like 15-20 minutes, something like that. And I didn't want that to happen to me. I really wanted a relaxing, pain-free, non-traumatizing birth. That didn't happen the way it planned, but I'll tell you more in a second. So after 10 o'clock, I was slightly numb after they put the epidural in, which they make your husband leave the room, which is not fun. But I had an amazing nurse, that Angela, that helped me, like, coach me through the pain. Not really even much pain. They deadened the area before, or they numbed the area before they put the epidural in. All you could feel is pressure. So not a big deal. IV wasn't a big deal either. They did the same thing to that. They numbed it first. And so they put it in, and she was coaching me the whole time, had me bent over. It's like, you're doing great, they're almost done, how are you doing, like, just ask me questions like that. And it felt really, really great. So I loved her. And the good thing about getting there at 7 is you get there at the beginning of a nurse's shift, because it's 7 to 7, and it was just really awesome to have her there all day, because I loved my nurse. And so they put it in, Garrett came back in, and I was slightly numb, not too bad. I couldn't feel the cramps or the contractions anymore. So around 12 o'clock, I took a nap, and around 12 o'clock is when I first started feeling cramps again. It was in my right side, in my pelvis area. And so they came in, and they were like, well, it might not be the epidural wearing off, it might just be your bladder needs to be drained. So they drained it, and yes, I was completely full of fluid. And which is so weird too, is that they never hooked me up to a catheter. They just emptied my bladder whenever, like every other hour, every 3 hours or whatever. They came in and inserted a catheter and drained it and then pulled it back out, which was so weird. Why they didn't just hook up a permanent catheter, I don't know. So it was kind of uncomfortable because she did have a new nurse there with her. It was her very first day on the job, and she had never done a cath. So she was letting her do it on me, and it kind of stung, but you know, she was doing her best. She wasn't trying to hurt me or anything, and it was bearable pain. I'm pretty good with pain tolerance. I can handle pretty much anything. So, you know, I tried not to make too scary of a face so I didn't freak her out because I knew it was her first time. But so after that, they're like, okay, you should be fine. And then I called him back in maybe 30 minutes later because it started getting really bad and like making a band across my stomach, the pain. And I was like, oh God, the epidural is wearing off. That's weird. So they came back in. And during the first time, I should have known something was wrong because whenever the anesthesiologist came in, there was a nurse anesthetist, like his assistant, and then another anesthesiologist watching him. And I don't know why that didn't click to me that maybe he's new, and the nurses didn't know who he was, and my nurse had been there 6 years, so I don't know why I didn't click to be alarmed. My nurse kind of seemed uneasy with him putting the epidural in to begin with. Looking back, I can see that. And so after that, the nurse was like, I knew that he did something wrong. I knew he had to have done something wrong. So they called the head nurse in. She came in and she pulled out my epidural to, like, they said something like it was supposed to not go in past the black line or something, that he put it in too deep. So she pulled it out a little bit, and then they upped my dosage, and everything went numb from like my belly button down. It was like completely numb. Like before I could slightly move my feet, but now I couldn't move anything. It was completely dead. Like, it was so funny. They had to come over there and flip me over, and I was like a limp noodle just flopping around. But so I was feeling good and I was happy. And so by that time I was still 3 centimeters. And then so I took another nap, and around 3 o'clock I started getting more pains, like it was getting worse. So they tried to empty my bladder, and there wasn't hardly anything in there. And so they called the nurse anesthetist to come back in there, and they upped my dosage. And so I went numb from the belly button down, again, completely numb. And then my nurse was like, thank God you're not 8 centimeters, and we're just finding out this now that the doctor put it in way too deep. And so that was interesting. So, and I don't know if I mentioned I was 5 centimeters at the time, so I started finally progressing. And then 5 p.m. comes around, and I am in excruciating, agonizing pain. I'm not having 10, like they're telling me to rate the contractions every time I had one, and I wasn't at a 10 yet. I was just up to an 8, and like I had like 1 or 2 8s, and everything else like a 7 to a 4, and it was getting kind of hard. So I was just hunched over. And the one thing, I never screamed or anything when I was in pain. I just breathed deeply, and I started getting really nauseous because they had given me juice earlier. And so I got a barf bag, and I never threw up. She checked me, and I was 9 centimeters. In 2 hours, I had progressed to 9 centimeters from 5 to 9. It was so crazy. 4 centimeters in 2 hours. And they're like, that's why it's so painful, because we upped the pitocin and you progressed really fast. So that's why you're having so much pain right now. And that the epidural had worn off. So they had another guy come in, and he put like 3 shots of epidural like instantly into my arm. So at that point I finally went numb again, and I went completely numb. This time it was from the chest down. He really dosed me up, and I started getting kind of worried that I wasn't gonna be able to push her out at that time, because I was like, I'm so numb, I'm not gonna be able to push. But little did I know, just an hour later at 6 o'clock they came back in, or I called them back in because I was starting to get horrible pains again. And it was so weird because like this time it started off at a 1, and then the next one was a 2, and it just slowly creeped up every single time I had another contraction. And they checked me, and they were like, you're gonna be 10 centimeters next time. I was 9.5 centimeters this time. So I was progressing really well. I wasn't in a full 10, so I wasn't ready to push, they didn't think, but I was in excruciating pain. Like it got up to a 10 this time, and I was bent over, and I thought I was gonna die. It hurt so bad. I couldn't talk to anybody. The doctors kept trying to talk to me and ask me questions, and finally they're like, do you want me to reinsert the epidural? We'll get another anesthesiologist in here. I said, yeah, sure, let's do it. So they take Garrett outside and make him go to a waiting room again, and they pull that one out and reinsert it. The first anesthesiologist had put it in way too deep and in the wrong spot, so I was having dead spots, or yeah, I think that's what they call dead spots. where you could feel it in certain places. And so the other guy came in and he reinserted it in a different spot. And it was really hard this time because I was having like size 10 contractions. It was so painful, and like to sit there and try to be still while they're sitting there trying to put the epidural in you is really hard, and your husband's not there to support you and like to help you, talk you through it. It's really hard. But my nurse, again, she was really great, and she talked me through it, make sure I was okay the whole time, and cheering me on, let me know that I was doing great and stuff like that. So this guy took longer. The first one probably took 5 minutes for them to put in. This one he took about 10 minutes. He took his time to make sure it was in the right spot. And so it never kicked in. Like, he started doing the pinch test and like pinching everywhere, and it never kicked in. He's like, okay, how about now? I was like, well, the contractions are getting less, but then I would get down to like a 4 contraction and it'd shoot right back up to a 10, and I was like, and I couldn't talk. It was so horrible. So still, again, not screaming. I was proud of myself. I wasn't like moaning and screaming my head off. So at that point, my nurse asked me, let me try something. Can you try pushing to see if it relieves any of the pressure? And so I started to push, and it does. It hurt down there, but it was nothing compared to the contraction. So I was like, yes, she said, do you want to go ahead and start pushing and deliver this baby? I said, yes, let's do it. So I started pushing. She's like, wait, get Garrett in here. And she called out in the hallway, get Garrett in here. So he comes running in. So I'd already started pushing before he got there. And then they called my doctor, and she, I swear, was like right outside the door. She came right in, and I had a team of nurses apparently. From that point on, after they called Garrett in, my eyes were closed the whole time pretty much. And so I was pushing, and I had 4 nurses on this side with Garrett and 4 nurses on the other side holding my legs, coaching me on, screaming, you're doing great, oh my god, good job, Christine. And it was just like a wonderful, like looking back now, it's just such an amazing feeling to have that many people cheering you on. And so I'm pushing, and before they had a mirror in there, and I thought it was just the grossest idea to sit there and watch your baby come out, because I had seen so many YouTube videos where babies were coming out. Like, it surprised me and it freaked me out, and it kind of psyched me out a little bit. But yeah, so I told them no, I didn't want that, and I wanted Garrett to be behind me. I didn't want him to see all that business. But it ended up, Garrett really couldn't go anywhere. He was going to be right in the action anyway. So he had my head and my right leg. And so still the epidural hadn't kicked in, and I was feeling everything. And so I finally said, yeah, can y'all get the mirror in here? Because they put it in the bathroom, so I definitely wouldn't see anything. So they brought it out. So they put the mirror in this so I could see. My vagina was on display for everyone to see. And so that's another thing, is that when you have birth, you're literally splayed out for everyone to see every nook and cranny of your body. And honestly, you're in so much pain, or you're just so numb or out of it, that you're not going to care. So I really didn't care until they had the anesthesiologist come in there. I remember trying to pull my dress down. But before I started pushing, Parker was in there sideways, so they had some kind of yoga ball thing, Garrett said, between my legs. It was like 2 yoga balls pieced together that was somehow supposed to turn her because she was sideways. But anyways, so I'm pushing. I'm sitting there looking in the mirror to try to gauge how I'm doing, and I started to get discouraged because they're like, you're doing great, but I didn't see anything happening. And they're like, oh my gosh, she's right there, but I didn't see anything happening. So I gave one more good push, and I saw the top of her head, and I was like, oh my gosh. So like 3 pushes later, her little head pops out, her big old cheeks, and she's sideways. She pops out, her eyes are closed, but her mouth is open. She looks like she was smiling. I remember that. And I was like, oh my god. So like, you're almost there, you can do this. So nonetheless, she comes out, 15 minutes of pushing, only 15 minutes of pushing. So I started pushing, I guess, at 6:33, and she comes out at 6:48. That's the time she was born. Now, in between pushing, before I saw her head come out, since I was feeling everything, one new nurse who I can't stand, now looking back, like, I did not like her. She put me in so much pain. She said, do you want me to put some quick pain medicine to maybe help the edge? And I just blindly said, yeah, sure. And so I think it was half a dose of pitocin that she put in there. And so anyways, it'll be relevant in a second, I promise. Parker comes out, and they put her on my chest. she's not moving, she's not crying, and they do everything. Come on, Parker, you can do it. Let's do it. And like, whatever they did, like, she wouldn't move. So finally she opened her eyes, still wasn't crying or coughing. So they pick her up after Garrett cuts the umbilical cord, and they took her away to check her out. Still hadn't cried, and I'm sitting there kind of scared. And so Garrett goes over there to be with her to make sure she's okay. And then all of a sudden it hit me. That pitocin she gave me didn't help with pain or anything. It just made my arms numb, and it made me feel super drowsy and very, very drowsy, where I couldn't keep my eyes open. So I remember after they took her away, I started fading in and out, and I was actually kind of scared that something was wrong with me, but I wasn't going to say anything because I wanted Garrett to be over there with her. The doctor shows me her umbilical cord, and she had tied her umbilical cord into a knot. It was a big pretzel knot, and I was like, oh my god, this girl. She's like, yeah, she was having fun in there. And so I saw that, and then like, I was still feeling all the pain down there. I could feel that I definitely tore, and so I did. I tore on the inside as well as towards my urethra, and finally I heard her let out a cry. She didn't do like a long cry, it was just like a wah, and she was done. So like, that's interesting. So Garrett had her, so it seemed like an hour went by, but I feel like I blacked out for a little bit. But I woke up and Garrett was standing beside me, and my doctor was starting to pull out the placenta, and I swear my placenta was hooked onto something inside, because oh my gosh, that hurt more than her coming out. It was so painful. It felt like she kept tugging on it, and like she was tugging on my insides, trying to, it's like, you can't really, I don't know, it's hard to describe because I've never felt anything like that before. It really did feel like she was pulling on my inside. So after I delivered that was worse than delivering her. And then she started to stitch me up, and I felt the stitches. Oh my gosh, that stung so bad. So that was pretty painful as well. Nonetheless, I ended up having a natural birth, as if you couldn't have figured that out by now. I had a natural birth, and I'm very blessed that I went by as quickly as it did. My nurse said that she's only had one other case where they had to stick the epidural in twice, and she's been there 6 years, and they've never had where the second one didn't take. And yeah, so, or even the pitocin didn't take, because the epidural was blocking where that medicine can go down and help my pain. So I did have a natural birth, and I'm pretty proud of it that I made it through, and that, I mean, I didn't have to go through as many of the contractions, which I think is the worst part, is going through such a long period of time with unbearable contractions. But I was just pretty much cool as a cucumber the whole time. I knew if something was going to happen, it was going to happen regardless if I could help it or not. You know, I was in a hospital, they were going to be able to help me regardless. And come to find out that the anesthesiologist that did my first epidural, he was from another hospital that doesn't have a lot of epidurals. He usually just puts people out for surgery. So I was one of his very first few cases, and I'm so blessed that I was. So I'd highly suggest asking. If you notice that the nurses are even acting kind of strange around the new anesthesiologists or introducing themselves to them, odds are you're going to want to get somebody who knows what they're doing. Don't be rude about it, but just be like, I just want to make sure that I'm not in unbearable pain, you know, because I signed in for an epidural or whatever. So anyway, it took about 2 hours for me to get out of the drowsiness where like I couldn't hold my eyes open. And in the 2 hours, my fever had spiked, and she had a high fever as well. So they wanted to keep an eye on us. We had to stay in the delivery room for 2 hours so they can get that down. And my blood pressure was really high. So my blood pressure and my fever didn't end up going down till like 3 or 4 in the morning. And hers had gone down pretty quickly. She had recovered pretty fast, so that was really good. But she was born at 8.5 pounds and 21 inches long, and she's about to be 8 weeks old. She is almost 11 pounds, and she is 25 inches long, and it's just crazy. So another thing, she had high thyroid levels whenever she was born, so we had to go back to the lab and get her scraped. It was horrible. Get her blood drawn to check that, which is fine. So she's a healthy little girl, like nothing has been going on with her, but it was crazy. Afterwards, Garrett said, we're not having any more children. Oh my gosh, I cannot watch you go through that again. That was just terrible. Like, there was nothing I could do. And that was the thing too, during the whole me pushing and stuff, we never really talked much. I was just breathing deeply and I had my eyes closed most of the time. So a lot of things happened unexpectedly. It's still so worth it for her. Like, hi, did you hear that? It's so worth it for her. Like, she's the best thing that's ever happened to me. You do have blue eyes. Huh. And yeah, so I know next time, if there is a next time, which I haven't talked Garrett into it yet, because he doesn't want to see me go through that again, that it'll be completely different next time. I might be in a 4-hour labor. So I went in knowing that I could probably be in labor for 24 hours or 48 hours. I could be pushing for 5 hours and have to have an emergency C-section. I was prepared for all of that, and I was just at ease with it, and I'd come to terms with it. So I think that's why she came so fast. I was just so chill and relaxed. Even when I was in pain, I didn't think about the end result of being in pain, pushing her out, because I just, in my mind, knew that they were going to fix the epidural and everything was going to be numb. Huh. Ugh. Hi. What? She's still in her pajamas. She is still in her pajamas from last night. She's having a lazy day. She's had a very hard week, so that's why I'm holding her right now, because she does not, this week has been really hard on her. She has to be held 24/7. Yeah, you're okay. You're okay. Okay, so she got really upset. I have her sitting down. She'll do good for about 15 minutes and then she'll cry. So I'm gonna finish this really quickly. That was my birth story, guys. I don't regret anything that happened, and I'm just so blessed to have her in our lives, even though she is having a hard time this week. I'm having a hard time this week. I haven't had much sleep, but it really is all worth it, no matter, even if I did go through a natural birth, which I never ever thought in a million years that I would go through a natural birth, even though I tried every avenue to like not have that happen. But nonetheless, it happened. I made it through it, and she made it through it, and we're all good. But alright guys, so that is my birth story. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know if any of your experiences were like mine, if you ever had that happen to you with the epidural before. I really want to know, to see if I'm the only one out there, which I'm sure I'm not. Anyways, I'm gonna have the timeline and everything happen down below, and if I forgot to say anything in here that I remember when I'm editing this and uploading it, I'll put it in the description below also. And guys, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see pictures of her, definitely check out my Instagram. I have that linked down below as well. Yeah, so I post pictures of her pretty regularly on that from day one till now, and like every time she meets a milestone, I have pictures of her on there. And so guys, I also want to thank you so much for all of you who have joined me on my journey from when I first found out I was pregnant, all the way through the updates of me telling you how I'm doing and progressing, and how she's progressing in my belly, and then also her outside of my belly and her life starting, and me starting off as a new mom. I really appreciate you guys following me on that journey. It really does mean so much that I have a little mommy community out there, and it just crazy. And just saying that, my mommy community, I never thought I'd be a mommy. I never thought it was possible for me, and that it's just crazy that she's here, and that she's mine, and she's my best friend. She's my everything. I just love her to death, and it's just, we've been through a lot, but we made it. So guys, anyways, all right, I love y'all so much, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye. Hey guys, so today is actually a really fun and exciting video for me to make. Not only am I collaborating a really fun website, maternity